Well, hey everyone, and welcome back to Get Your Geek On's Marvel Cinematic Universe Retrospective. I'm Robert, that's Aaron, and we're here to talk movie by movie through the MCU's Infinity Saga, 23 movies over 11 years.
Expect spoilers as we get into each movie, but we will start off each video by letting you know whether we think this is an essential movie for the overall arc of the MCU. Think of this as your guide into getting into the MCU.
I mean, there's definitely a couple of filler movies, although I think we might be past them. But if you're a completionist like me, maybe they're all essential. Oh my God.
It's coming.
Aaron.
It's here.
We made it.
We did.
We made it. It's the Infinity Saga, and we finally made it to Avengers Infinity War. So this movie was a massive success at the box office, raked in $257 million opening weekend, $2 billion over its run. It was directed by the Russo brothers, and honestly, it's going to be easier to tell you who's not in it. Jeremy Renner's Hawkeye is gone, as are the various Ant-Man characters. Maybe we'll see what happens to them in the next video.
Maybe.
And recently introduced Thor characters, Valkyrie and Korg. Womp womp. Pretty much everyone else who's still alive in universe at this point is in this movie.
Yeah. Everybody else, literally.
So we're not really, every other video we've been saying, is this movie essential? Duh.
Yeah.
This one definitely is.
There's no reason to even stop to ask that question.
It's called Infinity Saga, and this is the Infinity War. So yeah. But let's talk, this has only been a couple years since this movie was coming out. So public expectations, what I remember is outside of Star Wars, maybe episode 7 when it was coming back.
Yeah.
Is this maybe the most anticipated movie ever by that point?
I would say, yeah. Like, I remember the hype being so high for this movie because not only did we finally, after, almost 20 years, 10 years?
This was 10 years.
This was the 10-year mark. I can't remember if it was 9 or 10.
Iron Man was May 2018, and
right.
Infinity War is May.
So,
well, actually, it came out April of 2018. So 2008 to 2018.
Right. And I remember I actually have a hat that's the Avengers and has a 10-year on it.
Yeah.
I remember they did the big picture with all the cast for this from everyone who's ever been basically in the MCU. Mm-hmm. I mean, the hype was huge.
Well, and beyond just the hype of this being like, the culmination of what we've been building to, and we've got Thanos and we've got all this stuff.
Yeah.
What I remember is this being the first movie ever that was filmed completely on IMAX cameras.
Ooh.
And I was so excited to go see this movie in IMAX for the full 2 hours and 40 minutes of it.
Yeah.
The whole thing was in IMAX cameras.
So
and
beautiful.
Let me tell you, it was beautiful.
Oh, yeah. I missed it, but I heard nothing but good things about it.
It was so good. And I didn't see it in 3D. I'm not a 3D guy.
Yeah.
I just saw it in IMAX 2D. And my goodness, was this movie beautiful. It was absolutely gorgeous. So the first time I saw it, not only did I love it, but the reactions in the crowd. I mean, I went opening night. The reactions in the crowd, especially at the end of the movie, which we're going to get into spoilers,
right now,
was amazing.
Yeah.
And I just remember there were so many people that I think didn't know
which
what
is
was
so
about
weird.
to happen.
Like, really? You knew there was a part 2 coming out. We all knew there was going to be 2 movies.
Well, but before, you got to remember, leading up to this, Marvel had said, oh, no, they're 2 separate movies. There's another Avengers movie, but it doesn't end on a cliffhanger. They straight up lied to us.
Yeah. I mean, but when the Russo brothers took over, it was the movie working titles were Infinity War Part 1, Infinity War Part 2.
Right.
That was the working title before the Russo brothers actually got signed on.
Well, yeah.
So
and then that's what I'm saying is leading up to this movie, they kind of changed course on that. They didn't reveal what the Avengers, they said it's no longer Part 1 and Part 2.
Yeah.
And, the next movie, it's a sequel, but it's
We're not telling you the title.
It's not Part 2.
No. But we're not going to tell you the name right now.
100% Part 2.
It is.
Avengers Endgame is Part 2 for this movie. Literally, after watching this one, I wanted to skip the next 2 movies that are in between because I'm like, I just want to watch Endgame because it leads right into it.
Especially when we're in the Endgame.
We are in the Endgame. Doctor Strange says that.
It was right there in front of us the whole time.
Well, and a lot of people had speculated it, and once again, Marvel said, no, the title isn't in the movie. Yes, it is. It 100% is. Yeah. So Marvel's starting to lie to us a little bit. But
I don't mind.
At the end of the day, I'm okay with it. So, all right, let's get into the movie. So the movie follows Thanos. He's on a journey to collect those 6 Infinity Stones and use them to balance the universe, right? Our heroes, they encounter him on several different occasions. Each time they try and fail to stop him. And it all ends in an epic showdown in Wakanda. And the movie ends with our beloved characters disappearing.
At least
in front
half
our
of them.
eyes.
At least half.
So yeah, what stands out to you? What are your favorite parts from this movie? I mean, it's a big one.
You know, I'm gonna kind of work a little backwards.
Okay.
The end.
Yep.
Was amazing. The dusting was just beautiful.
As the way the sound is sucked out, the different characters that are going through. I mean, it starts with a Steve.
Yep.
You know, from Bucky, and then it ends with
Peter,
the most heart-wrenching one.
It was, and it always tugged. So, you know, one of my friends, and this is something we argued with about this movie after the movie came out. Actually, the first time, not this time. When Peter's dying, you know, he does take the longest. Essentially, he tries to say,
and I saw speculation that it was because he's the most powerful.
Possibly, yeah, because he is one of the more powerful people.
And so, like that, I could buy that. Obviously it's a cinematic.
It is.
They want you to see a progression. They want you to see. They want you to live with each character. And yes, they want to end on Spider-Man. And I really like the way that, you know, he starts by saying, "I don't feel so good."
Yeah.
And the theory that I've heard that I really like is that that's his spider sense. Yeah.
See, and that's why I didn't mind it. Yes, for cinematic and for plots and everything, blah blah blah. We had to have it drag out. But at the same time, he would know before anybody else is being affected. He will know before that something's not right. Now, just because he says, "I'm not feeling good," doesn't mean it's already happening, but his spider sense is already alerted.
Yeah.
And it's already like, it's coming. The spider sense knows it's about to happen. So to me, it wasn't so much necessarily dragged out as much as it was, he knew he was going to die.
Oh, and that moment as he's, you know, I don't want to go. I don't want to go.
Yeah.
I don't want to go. And then he ends with, "I'm sorry," you know, because he feels like he's let Iron Man down. He feels like he's let, you know, Tony down. Oh man.
And that's why I say I want to start backwards, because that's the saddest.
Yeah.
And then as we go back.
Well, just building off that point, that leads into one of my things.
Okay.
Which I think not only is this maybe my favorite performance in the MCU.
Okay.
But possibly the best performance of any actor in the MCU in any movie. Tom Holland in this movie, whether it's that scene, whether it's his early scenes where he's, you know, teaming up with Tony and Doctor Strange, whether they're fighting with the Guardians, like
Save the Wizard.
Tom Holland is incredible in this movie.
Yeah, he shines.
He's so good, and like that carries into Spider-Man: Far From Home, which we'll talk about.
Yeah,
and he showed it off in Civil War and not Far From Home, Homecoming.
Yeah,
as well. But I think like literally, man, they knocked it out of the park when they cast him. He's such a good actor.
He's really good, and I love. In this movie, we also saw again. And I think we have already commented this in Captain America: Civil War. I don't like the power difference with Captain's powers, how strong he really is, and versus comics. Not getting into that comment, but when we first see Spider-Man, how Tony's struggling with I forgot the guy's name, the hulky looking kind of guy for
Cole Obsidian.
Yep. He's kind of struggling, and Spider-Man grabs the hammer. Hey, what's going on? And he's like nothing.
Yeah.
And I love that they're showing off in this one again how strong and how powerful Spider-Man is, because in the comics he is very strong. He's super strength. He can lift cars. He can actually, I think, lift almost a fire truck on his own. And I think he might struggle with it if I'm not mistaken, but he can lift it. I mean, that's a feat in itself.
Sure.
So to block this guy's hammer, who Tony's struggling and he's, "Hey, Mr. Stark, like, what's going on? Save the wizard." Okay. And he just, goes and saves the wizard.
Yeah.
So I think he nails it. I love the CGI in this one. Everything finally looks beautiful. There's a couple scenes where it's like the shadowing's a little off to me, but no matter what, everything looks amazing.
I mean, Thanos is incredible in this movie. Like the CGI work on that character alone is phenomenal. The work on Hulk, I love when they do like the half Hulk, half Banner face.
I love that.
That works really good. I actually, one of my favorite low key moments, not low key, but
he didn't last long.
Is with the cloak. Doctor Strange's cloak, when Peter and Tony, first kind of encounter each other on the alien ship, and the cloak is there too, and Stark is like starting to lecture him about being there, and the cloak is like kind of making also like like
the
it's like
gestures.
disapproving like gestures. I love it. And like literally this time I was like, I'm only gonna watch the cloak in that scene. And
I should have done that. I didn't think about it. And I do like the scene too because right before that, Spider-Man basically blames Iron Man for being on the ship.
It's your fault.
It's your fault. It's so was intuitive or whatever.
Yeah.
And he's like, "What? Did you say blame me? No, it's amazing too. It's so good."
Yeah. I definitely.
It's the whole movie though.
It's a beautiful movie for sure.
And I love that everybody kept kind of their character. It wasn't so much like, oh, we're in this movie, we got to change our attitude. No, even the Guardians of the Galaxy.
Oh yeah.
Where's Gamora? Who's Gamora? What Gamora?
Yeah. Why is Gamora?
Oh, why is Gamora? Yeah. Why is Gamora? And it's like, okay, yeah, that's still the Guardians of the Galaxy humor.
And one of the favorite memes that has come out of anything is Drax being invisible. Which again,
slowly.
like it's 30 seconds, but it helps to break up, like the seriousness of this movie. And there are those moments of comedy. And that makes you feel like this is a regular old Marvel movie.
It really does.
And by the end, it's not.
No.
And this is not your regular old Marvel movie. So I want to talk about Thanos and his journey. He's the protagonist of this movie. Right. We're following his journey. We end the movie on him, on, his shot. We get the famous Thanos will return. Like in other movies, it's been Iron Man will return, or Captain America, or the Avengers, Spider-Man, the Guardians will return. Like it's Thanos will return. So this is his movie.
Yeah.
And like his motivation is entirely different than anything we've seen before. And it doesn't really make a whole lot of sense if you dive too deep into it.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like, he's talking about how the resources of the universe are finite. Well, you have the Reality Stone. You can just change reality. You can change how many resources there are.
And I want to argue that for a quick second because that's the same thing.
Sure.
But no matter what, the problem's still there. You can keep adding resources, but all it's going to do is put a Band-Aid on it, wouldn't it?
I mean, but what's to stop you from continuing to do that?
I mean, no one learns. As you can see, I'm on Thanos' side this whole time.
Why do we have to learn?
Because if you don't learn, you're going to keep repeating the same mistake.
Yeah. So
honestly, I in this whole movie, I was on Thanos' side the whole time.
So you're one of those people like, where it's like, hey, there's 6 kids and 3 chairs. And, it's like, what do we do? And Thanos is like, kill half the kids. And everyone else is like, build more chairs. Like, why?
Well, what if you don't have any way of building more chairs?
But we do. We have a Reality Stone.
What happens if it's like the original Green Lantern? He's affected by wood. It doesn't work.
Oh, God. You can make chairs out of other material than just wood.
I don't know. I get the theory of like that, but I always was like, but then you're going to always have that continuous problem. And it's not like he said, all the planet from Gamora is on. It's now thriving. There's no more poverty.
Because you killed half the planet.
Yeah. But I mean, okay. So you bring in, let's say 5 tons of resources. Where does it go on the planet?
He owns reality. He can place it exactly where he wants to.
But the planet, so he's going to have to increase the planet size, increase everything.
But that's what I'm saying. Once he gets all the stones, he could snap his fingers to do that instead of killing half the population.
But at the same time, when are you going to allow too much mass? Because what happens if he makes each planet keep growing, and then they collide?
Don't worry about it.
You don't want to worry about that part.
No, it create more space. He can change more space. He can make reality anything he wants it to be.
But here's the thing: in this one, comics different version, the Infinity Stones truly are unlimited power. In this one, they actually have a limit to them, and it is shown.
In what way?
Well, first of all, when he snaps his fingers, I'm going to stick to this film.
Yeah.
When he snaps his fingers, the gloves breaks. He has issues with it.
Sure,
it hurts him.
It overpowers the glove, the gauntlet.
Which in the comics, when he snaps his fingers, nothing happens like that. Sure. It's just unlimited power. So that shows that there was a struggle for the Infinity Gauntlet to work and destroy half the universe.
Well, I would say that was more in the housing mechanism, not the stones themselves.
You think so?
I do.
So then, again, if he's trying to keep giving all these resources, eventually he wouldn't be able to. Wouldn't the chalice or whatever, the gauntlet, eventually break down?
Well, he can just change reality so that resources self-regenerate. Every time you kill a cow, another one shows up. I mean, I don't know.
It just pops up out of nowhere.
It's literally, you can change the fabric of reality.
I just want to see a cow move, and it just falls over. There's still a cow standing there.
All right, well,
we're going on too much.
Let's skip past that. Yeah. As we're talking about the stones, that's one of the things I want to talk about is the way that this movie uses the stones. Mm-hmm. And as he collects them, he uses each one and it kind of lights up on the gauntlet so you can see what he's doing.
I do like that. That was really cool.
I think that's a great effect. And you can see, right now he's using the Power Stone and the Space Stone to throw a moon at Iron Man.
Oh my gosh, that was so cool.
Or he's using the Soul Stone to figure out which one is Doctor Strange as he's fighting the army of Doctor Stranges. Like each one of those stones, he's using them in context to do those things. And it's just really cool the way they do that. And one of the things that I called out, and I know we talked about it in an earlier video, is his use of the Time Stone after he gets the axe in the chest from Thor to like heal himself as he's teleporting away. So you could see the Time Stone, there's a little green around his chest.
Yeah.
And the final shot that you see of him, he doesn't have that wound anymore.
Right.
So yeah, I mean, like, it's just the attention to detail and the way that they use the stones, I think, is really cool.
Oh, I love it. Especially, again, I go back to the Reality Stone where he's on nowhere. Yeah. And he literally destroyed everything, but everything looks fine. Yep. The collector's okay. Everything's okay. And then it slowly just all turns red and it's destroyed. And the collector who's like, magnificent, and just waving by because he's already dead. Yep. And I do think that was a waste of the collector. Like, you don't know what happened 100%. We don't
technically know he's dead, yeah.
I mean, you don't, but it kind of seems like it because he's clapping, and then he's like, magnificent, and then...
Well, and that version is just a reality.
Yeah, that's his reality.
It's just a different reality.
But nowhere's destroyed at that point.
Right, but we do know that he doesn't always, like... Thanos doesn't always kill people. That's not his end goal. His end goal is not to kill people. Like, he leaves Thor alive at the end of the first fight, right? Like, he blows up the ship, but he leaves Thor alive. He sent half of the refugees away, which is where Valkyrie and Korg end up. And they kind of, there's a dropped line that he killed half his people. Right. When he ends up encountering, like other heroes throughout his journey, like his end goal is not to kill them. It's just to get the stones. Like, and then he'll let chance take over. Like, he's not trying to kill everyone he comes in contact with.
I mean, and that's true. He really isn't. Now, if you get in his way, he'll kill you.
He has no qualms about killing you, but that's not his intention.
And that's true. But if the collector's going to try to stop him, I would assume. I mean, I don't know. Collector's also not a real fighter, so I don't know how. We haven't seen his true personality in any of the movies yet. It's more of, I am a collector. I collect things.
I mean, I think back to that scene on Nowhere. He uses the Reality Stone to like warp Drax and Mantis. Like,
those were cool looking
so that
too.
They can't attack him or whatever.
Yeah.
But as soon as he leaves, those effects lift because he's not trying to kill him. He's just hey, I'm gonna incapacitate you right now. Stay away.
And that comes to the other question: how is it him because he did that, or is it one of those? The Reality Stone doesn't have that power to keep its effects once he gets a certain distance.
They didn't really explain that.
Yeah, because I always thought maybe that's a weakness to the Reality Stone. After a certain distance, it fades because he's not there to control reality anymore. Sure. But I do like that scene. I'm glad you did say that. We do see Gamora is finally ready to kill Thanos because she thinks she kills him. She stabs him.
She's emotional about it. Like, it's not like it was easy for her, but she's going to do it.
Yeah. And I think she sold that scene, honestly, because she felt so bad, even though she's been saying, I want to kill Thanos. I hate my father. And yet here she is almost crying still over everything.
The themes of this movie, whether it be, trading lives or sacrifice, I mean, they're talking about, whether it's Vision and Cap, we don't trade lives. And they kind of, it's funny because they go, how is this different than when you sacrificed yourself at the end of the first Avenger? And they just, and Hulk just jumps in and he's like, because maybe you don't have to. And we're like, we're not going to answer that question. Yeah. Which it doesn't make sense.
No, it doesn't.
But, then you have, Star-Lord and Gamora, and she's saying, you have to kill me. And Star-Lord makes the choice. He does.
He makes a hard choice.
And the Reality Stone blocks it out. You've got Scarlet Witch. She makes the choice. She kills Vision. She does it.
Yeah. And see that.
And then Thanos turns it back to get the stone. Like, so the heroes are making the necessary sacrifices. They're willing to do it. They don't want to. Right. They're struggling with it, but they're willing to do it. You have, stones for lives, whether it's, the opening with Thor and the Tesseract.
Right.
Or Doctor Strange and with the Time Stone and Tony, like we're trading stones for lives in different sections. Gamora making the choice to save Nebula by leading him to the Soul Stone. Right. I mean, so there's a lot of choices. Themes, sacrifice is such a huge component of this movie.
It really, really is.
And all the way, up to Thanos sacrificing Gamora, and obviously he wouldn't have gotten the stone if he didn't love her. Because that's the whole point, is that you have to lose something you love.
Right.
And, Gamora's like, no, this isn't love. That you can't love me. Obviously, he did.
Yeah. He had to have some love in there. And I'm glad you talk about that quick scene with the Soul Stone where he must kill her to get it.
Yeah.
We actually have a very subtle recast of the Red Skull.
Correct.
So
voice actor Ross Marquand, who's also in The Walking Dead.
Mm-hmm. He replaced Hugo Weaving, who was originally the Red Skull.
Yep.
And I'm kind of sad about that. Like when I heard the voice, I was like,
I could tell it was a little different.
Yeah, I was like, he's trying very hard.
Yeah.
It sounds like to be Hugo Weaving.
Well, and he's also, there's like an effect on the voice too.
Oh yeah, they have like a distorter on there or something.
And so you can tell like they were, they were saying, we know it's different, but we're going to try and explain it being different with this effect.
Yeah.
It mostly works.
It does. And it did. Some people still thought it was Hugo Weaving. And I was like, it's not Hugo Weaving. I recognize, I've watched V for Vendetta 100,000 times. I know his voice.
Yeah.
So I was kind of a little upset. Well, not upset. I guess disappointed that it wasn't Hugo coming back. And who knows, maybe he didn't have a contract or something.
He had talked for years about how he didn't like playing that character, all the makeup he had to do and everything.
Oh, I bet.
And
this character looks CGI'd all the way.
And he did say, I am under contract, and if Marvel forced me to, I would have to come back and do it. But he clearly didn't want to. And so Marvel, they had another solution. They had another way to do it. And they, they're not going to burn that bridge. Marvel, Disney, like, they're not going to burn that bridge with an actor that big.
Yes.
And, maybe further down the road, he will return to that character. I don't know where or how. But, I think that it was clear Hugo Weaving didn't want to do it. And so they weren't going to force him to.
And I guess that's a good point. Like you said, if you're not going to force the actor, and no telling if he is going to come back ever or what they're going to do with him. And technology's gone so far. I mean, the character in this one did look CGI'd. I don't think they put makeup on that guy. And if they did, it wasn't very much.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. I just thought it was a funny, soft typecast or recast because we don't talk about it. And
sure.
So, like I said, some people believed it was him still.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. I wish we could have gotten more of the journey and more information about the stones, honestly. What is their true power? Because like I said, in the comics, it literally is limitless power. It's unlimited.
Well, and I think that, they're trying to fit this into one movie. The quest for the Infinity and Stones and the Gauntlet. They're fitting that in one movie. And even though we've seen elements of the Stones used before, we haven't really seen them used in this way.
Right.
And so I thought they did a good job. Maybe not a great job, but a good job of explaining all the stones, what they were used for. And then seeing them used in, by Thanos, I thought it was very well explained. Even though I'm really into it, I have some friends that weren't, and they have seen most of the movies. They went to see this one. They understood it. It wasn't like that was confusing or anything.
Right.
So I think they did a good job with that. The one thing that we haven't talked about that I want to talk about is the different relationships and dynamics that we get in this movie. And the one that most stands out to me that I think is my favorite in this movie, and maybe one of my favorite relationships in any Marvel movie, is Rocket and Thor. I love their dynamic.
I do too, because he gives them the eye.
Sweet rabbit.
Sweet rabbit.
But like that moment where Rocket says, okay, time to be the captain. And he tries to go give him the pep talk. And he's like, are you sure you're up to this particular murder mission? He's talking about, dead father, dead sister, still got a mom now.
Cruddy prep talk.
No, she's dead. Best friend, stabbed through the heart. Like, he's just like, oh, this.
Your dog? Ate by or choked on the cat.
Yeah, and it's just like this whole thing, and the button, is Thor's like, well, he's never fought me. Well, yeah, he has. Well, he hasn't fought me twice. And I'm getting a new hammer, and this whole thing, and he's go, and if this is the end, what do I have to lose? And you get that moment of Rocket going, I got a lot to lose.
Yeah, he realizes.
And by the end of this movie, he's lost his whole family.
Yeah.
He's the only one of the Guardians who's left. I mean, unless you count Nebula, and she's sort of, but not really.
Honorary member.
And so, Groot disappears in front of his eyes. Gamora was sacrificed. Star-Lord and Drax and Mantis, they all, disappear on Titan. And so, like that scene comes back by the end of the movie where you're going,
I didn't even think about that, yeah.
Did lose everything. Like, oh my God. Because Thor didn't go for the head.
Didn't go for the head. That's all it took. He should have went for the head.
Yeah.
And I really like Rocket in this one. He has A lot of good one line, and again, his humor didn't change.
No.
Here's the eye. From I forgot what he says. He got it.
That.
Yeah, I'd watch that. And then when he sees Bucky again, how much for the arm?
Oh,
not for sale.
I love that. It starts with the gun.
Oh, the gun's right.
How much for the
gun? How much for the gun?
Not for sale. And he goes, how much for the arm? And he's just like, he's just
didn't even acknowledge.
And he's, I'm gonna get that arm.
Yeah, and I love it because we've gotten the leg, we've gotten an arm, we have an eyeball now that pops up. He's building a man somewhere.
Oh, for sure.
He wants to do that.
He's just he always wants something.
And I love it, and see. Here's the one thing I didn't get, and I guess it's an emotional thing, and maybe I'm just a little cold-hearted.
Okay.
Star-Lord. After this movie came out, everyone hated Star-Lord.
That made no sense to me.
His part or people hating?
No,
him?
people hating on Star-Lord.
Really?
Because we've seen different emotional reactions throughout the MCU. They've, whether it's Iron Man, attacking Bucky, even though he knows. So like, he killed my mom. Yeah, but he was brainwashed to do that. So it's an emotional reaction. We've seen that. And to me, everyone's blaming Star-Lord. Well, in that moment, Doctor Strange has already seen the future, and he already knows that. Even if they let's say there's a version where Star-Lord doesn't do that and they get the glove off, Thanos is still going to be able to defeat them. The character, if you're going to hate on a character, to me, it's Gamora. She's the only one that knew where the Soul Stone was, and yes, she gave it up to protect her sister. But if she had just sacrificed her sister, Thanos wouldn't have known.
That's true.
And I'm not saying she should have done that, but if you're gonna blame one character,
blame Gamora.
It's Gamora. Okay. She's the only one that knew where it was.
Yeah,
I'm just saying.
I give you that. I kind of get why people blame Star-Lord, but yeah, when you say it that way, that's true. The emotional, after watching all these movies now, almost 20 movies at this point, you're right. There is a lot of emotional outbursts that just happen. So it is interesting though, because I didn't know how I felt about it.
Okay.
When I saw that scene and watching it again, where he's like, "This was my plan," or what was it? Yeah, my plan. I think.
My plan.
My plan.
For the record.
Yeah, and he puts the gun away, and then he starts talking to
where's Gamora?
To Thanos.
Where is she? That whole thing.
And I think at that point too, Mantis shouldn't have said anything. That's how I almost looked at it. Because if Mantis wouldn't have said anything at all, if she would have kept her mouth shut,
right,
he would have been just asking questions Thanos can't answer.
Yeah. And Nebula does it too. And again, these are characters that have lived with Star-Lord for now a couple years. Like they should know his emotional range and that he's not going to be able to take that. But in that moment, they're also just they're just kind of reacting. And so I think it makes perfect sense for the character of Star-Lord to react that way. I think it makes perfect sense for Mantis to not really think about what she's saying, because every other time she does that, she doesn't think about what she's saying. She just says it. And Nebula's also grieving in that moment, and that's her realization where it hits home. My sister, who just, she sacrificed herself for me. Yeah. I should have died. And instead,
and it's just Gamora the talking out loud really at that point for her. That makes sense. Yeah. I don't know. That scene still a little bit irks me sometimes, especially where, gosh, they had that glove off
close.
Too.
So close.
It's like, oh, we got this. We're right. Dang. No.
And you get Tony being like, no, don't, don't do it, man. Don't snap.
And at the same time, I guess, why didn't Tony just blast him? He's trying to pull, but it's like, okay, yeah, let's just keep going now. He wasn't doing anything really.
There's a lot of different characters that, it's like, man, they should have just done one thing different.
Exactly.
Plug for the Disney Plus series, What If?
Exactly. And that's what's going to happen now,
One small thing that's different, right?
And so I know we've said this in other movies.
Yep.
Did you see any major plot holes? Because I know we've almost said like every movie there's this major plot hole. And I think there's a few videos we don't, but this one, did you see anything?
I think that there's definitely some inconsistencies with this movie, but I think they covered all the plot holes. It's like, where's Valkyrie and Korg? Well, they drop a line that half of Thanos slaughtered half my people. So the other half must have got away. He let them go, whatever happened.
Whatever the case is.
We don't know. Why did Hulk end up at Doctor Strange? Well, Thor interacted with Doctor Strange in Thor Ragnarok. So clearly he knew about Doctor Strange. Maybe he shared that with Heimdall, so he sent him there. So I think that there are, they cover over their plot holes. Yeah. I think the biggest one for me still comes back to Thanos' motivation, and that's just a character error. That's just a character's judgment. I don't know it's necessarily a plot hole.
And to me, with that, and again, watching the movies since the beginning now, essentially, when you first see Thanos at the end of the Avengers, the first little clip of to fight Earth is to court death.
Yeah.
And that smirk always gets me every time. I feel like they were going to go one route and then something changed.
That's a comic.
And they
that was
went,
the comics route.
Yeah, it felt like they were going that route. Like we're going straight the comic book route, but then someone somewhere said, "No, let's go." And I think that's where we got the, like you said, the character flaw almost of like we don't understand his motive. I mean, and I want to know where he got the army from, because it's like, how do you get these people who are going to agree with you that when you snap your fingers, they may that half may die too? Like, how does he stop that?
Well, I mean, it's just.
I mean, I guess it's like anything else. You always have people who are willing to follow the evil villain wherever they go.
Yeah.
People still follow Joker in the comics, and it's like, you're not going to live, probably.
Yeah. I do love kind of the symmetry of the 4 main villains.
Yeah.
That in terms of how they die, because you have the Ebony Maw, the wizard one. The first character he interacts with on Earth is Tony Stark.
Right.
Technically, he's killed by Tony Stark as he blasts out the side of the ship.
Right.
Then you have the one dude that stabbed Vision. He gets killed by Vision. He gets stabbed back.
Yeah.
And that kills him. The chick that encountered Scarlet Witch, she ended up getting like thrown into the big thing by Scarlet Witch and kills her. And then the other dude, he that first moment where he's coming to attack them is when Bruce can't Hulk out, and Hulk is the one that ends up killing him.
Yeah.
Or actually, Bruce
does
does
with
Bruce
the
kills
Hulk,
him
with the
in the Hulkbuster suit.
Yeah, could think of that.
So it's kind of a neat symmetry where it's like the first character they kind of interact with ends up being the one that kills them later on in the movie. I thought that was cool.
I like that. That's true. But the one thing I didn't like. Now we got those 4 villains, but they didn't really flesh them out at all. Like, I don't remember their name except Ebony Maw. That's the only one I think everybody, we know who you are.
Yeah.
There was
Cull Obsidian, Proxima Midnight is one of them. And then, God, I can never remember the 4th dude.
I don't remember any of their names except Ebony Maw. Because like that's the one it seems like everybody just happened to know his name. And again, in the original comic book, they rewrote the Infinity Quest essentially in the last 10 years to fit the movie. But originally, it was just Thanos on his own. Like, he had no army. He had no...
and they're called, like,
villains.
the Children of Thanos.
That's what they're called. Yeah. The Children of Thanos. And they follow him to a fault. They will do whatever he says. I just wish we would have gotten the villains a little more fleshed out, like you said. But we had to bring everybody back together.
Yeah, I don't think that there was any chance that we were going to get that.
No, not at all. I mean, like you said, this was a 2-hour, 40-minute movie, you said, right? I can't remember.
Corvus Glaive.
That's the last like one. Brother, the thin one, right?
Well, they're married. Him and Proxima Midnight are that's their backstory, is that they're actually married. He's the one with the
spear
stabby
thing.
The stabby
stab. Stab. And I didn't like how, I don't know, man, I guess they're not super strength because, I mean, Black Widow kind of overpowers them pretty quickly.
Yeah, I will say the biggest disappointment I have with this movie is how little of the Captain America team we get. Whether it's Captain or Black Widow or Falcon, we get very little time with the 3 of them.
We really do.
And it's funny because they said, in the next movie, the characters that didn't get focused on are going to... And we definitely got more Black Widow and more Captain America in the second one. But we didn't get any more Falcon.
Nope.
We still get very little Falcon. And he was always kind of more of a minor character to begin with.
Yeah, even in the comics, he's never gotten a big role. And you're right. They almost don't get touched on very much except the introduction. Yeah. And then they go to Wakanda and they make the dumb joke. Do I bow to him? Or I mean, he's king.
Yeah. Which is a great moment with Don Cheadle, like totally bagging on him. That's a funny moment, but
that was one of my favorites too.
Yeah. And my favorite joke in the whole movie, and it might be my favorite joke ever, is when Thor comes back to Wakanda, which, by the way, that moment is epic when Thor shows up in Wakanda.
Heck yeah.
But when he comes back to Wakanda and him and Steve are on the battlefield and I see you've copied my beard, and he's like, new haircut, and they do that. And then it's oh, by the way, this is my friend Tree. I am Groot. I am Steve Rogers.
Yeah, because he doesn't know what to do.
Oh my God. It's like that joke is so killer.
It's the best.
Love it.
It is true because I mean, that's how Steve would react. He's just like, I am Steve Rogers.
We're doing introductions.
Yeah.
I am Groot. I am Steve Rogers.
I think one thing I didn't like in that one, especially because we've already had Black Panther at this point, right?
Yep.
It came out. The line that T'Challa says, "Get this man the shield," and they give him those little like weird. Almost looks like more of a gauntlet.
Yeah, they're kind of half Wakandan weird shields.
Yeah, but we've already seen these energy shields that they had with Black Panther. Yeah. Why couldn't we give them something that could have been like an energy looking shield?
Don't worry about it.
I am.
Don't worry about it. It's fine.
It's terrible.
So let's circle it back to talking about the dustings, because audience reaction. This is what I want to talk about.
Yeah.
That was a big thing. Watching this movie, there were people that clearly didn't know what was about to happen.
No,
they were not expecting the finger snap. They were expecting when Thor threw the axe,
it was over.
That was, we're gonna kill Thanos.
Yeah.
And so that you should have gone for the head, and he snaps the fingers, and we get all the silence and everything, and you get Bucky going, Steve, and then he disappears. And I'll never forget the Spider-Man hit me the hardest.
Oh my gosh!
But I'll never forget the Rocket and Groot moment where Groot starts to disappear and Rocket's going, no, Groot. And there was somebody in the row in front of me. He goes, not Groot again, because he sacrifices himself at the end of Guardians. And I was like, oh, like this person. And in my head, I wanted to be like, it's okay, he'll come back in the next one.
Exactly, he will. And see, that's one thing I love. The death scenes are really touching. Yeah, and everyone always kept saying, and later on they confirmed it was true, where he says, I am Groot, and he's like, dad, or what is it, was it say, or dad or father or something.
Yeah, where that's the translation of that.
People were like,
moment.
oh, he's saying dad, and then they had to actually comment, oh yeah, he is. You guys just wanted it so bad that he said, I don't care if he said.
I can get it when he says I am Groot. He's expressing how
some love
that
or something.
He's scared to lose his friend Rocket. I don't need any more than that.
Yeah, and that's where I would have, if no one would have said that, I would have been happy with that. And to be honest, when people were like, oh, he said father or daddy or whatever, that ruined it for me, because I'm like, why can't it just be, why couldn't it have been I love you? Why couldn't it have just been like I am Groot? Like, he's just, like you said, the facial expression, we saw how sad he was, how scared he was. Mm-hmm. I don't need to have that translated. That translated in CGI. And that's amazing to me. It shows you where we are at with our graphics, essentially.
Yeah, for sure.
So that scene did hit me, but yeah, Spider-Man hit me the hardest. I think Star-Lord's was the most unique, I would say, because he's like, oh man, and that's such a Star-Lord thing. Like, he's not gonna be like, oh, no, it's like,
well, and even like you can see the relationship that has built between someone like Drax and Star-Lord, where he's like, that's his last name. He's like, Quill, like, what's going on?
Yeah,
like, you're the guy I look to. You're my leader. You're
exactly,
like, what's happening? And so, like, yeah, I mean. And the Black Panther one was like totally unexpected, because it's like you think it's going to be the general.
Yeah.
And then Black Panther disappears. And I remember, like, that was the moment, which I think that was only the second death, because I think it was Bucky first, and then it was Black Panther, I believe.
Yeah, I think you're
or
right.
maybe Falcon. It might have been Falcon next. It might have been Bucky, then Falcon, then Black Panther. But it was Black Panther was early.
Yeah, he was. Now I gotta watch it again.
And I remember that being the moment where I was like, oh, so they're definitely bringing everyone back. Because as soon as they kill off Black Panther, I'm like, well, clearly
he has more movies.
He has a sequel coming. And then we get to Titan, and we kill off not only all the Guardians, but Doctor Strange and Spider-Man, like all the new characters. I'm like, oh, like, we're just leaving the old Avengers team. That's what's happening.
And that...
which I kind of like, we're closing the saga. Like, we started with this team, we're ending with this team. Yeah. And really the only new characters that we kind of add to the original 6 Avengers are, we get, Rocket and Nebula, and then Ant-Man. And really, other than that, it's our 6 primary Avengers. Yeah. It's Iron Man, it's Captain America, it's Hulk, it's Thor, it's Hawkeye, and it's Black Widow. Yeah. Those are our 6, and then we add in like just those few to help the story. But all of the rest of our secondary characters. Oh, we get War Machine too. He sticks around. He sticks around. And he was, in the first movie. So he's been there since the beginning. He wasn't an Avenger since the beginning, but he's been there since the beginning. Yeah. Really, almost everyone else is like phase 2 characters. Falcon was introduced in phase 2. Yeah. All of like Vision, Scarlet Witch, they're phase 2. Spider-Man phase 2.
Captain Marvel's technically almost phase 3, right?
Yeah.
When she comes out.
Captain Marvel was phase 3.
Okay.
And she's not dusted. We haven't seen her by this point. By the end of this movie,
we just get the logo at the end.
Exactly.
And that's it.
So really, we dust everybody, and that's the post-credit scenes where bye-bye to Nick Fury too.
Yeah, I was so
you said Star-Lord's was the most unique. Samuel Jackson going.
he actually says his
mother. Like, that's where he cuts out.
And I love you have to throw that in there for Samuel Jackson. Yeah. I was so happy after all these years. He finally was he was going to say it, essentially.
Yeah. And this was the first Marvel movie in a long time that only had one We didn't get a mid-credit scene. We lived with the snap for like 8 minutes before we finally got to that post-credit scene of Maria Hill and Nick Fury and them also dusting away.
Yeah.
But we get that it ends on a little bit of hope with Captain Marvel.
Yeah, because you see the symbol.
Oh man, Drax.
The invisible Drax is just moving so slow.
Hi, Drax.
It just gets all bad.
All right. So we've talked for a lot about this movie. This is a huge movie. This is a big one. We've been building towards this, and we still have 4 movies after this because I think we've got Ant-Man and Wasp next. Then we've got Captain Marvel, Endgame, and Spider-Man Far From Home. So we're coming to the end of this, but this was what we've been building toward. This is the Infinity War, Infinity Saga. So hit me with your final thoughts and your rating.
So my final thoughts is... overall, an amazing movie. I really recommend. I could sit and watch this one over and over and over again, and every scene would still hit as hard as it did the first time. And that's one thing that I think that's unique about this movie compared to all the other ones. My mind's changed on a few things on some of the other ones. It's gone one way or the other, but this one, it still hits the same as I did the first time I watched it.
Yeah.
So overall, it's a great movie. Comic side of me still upset with, again, Avengers 1. We were going one way, and we've made a whole another 180, another direction in this movie. So that kind of does upset me. But overall, I like the movie. I'm going to give it a nice solid 9.2 out of 10. I think there could have been some things that could have been done better. I really do. And I'm never going to top it over Spider-Man because Spider-Man. I don't care if Spider-Man bites. I would still go for Spider-Man. Toby. But yeah, I really think it was a well-written movie. Really... the reason I'm giving it that lower score and not like closer to a 10 is only because
I don't think 9.2 is a low score, Aaron.
I feel it's low for this movie. I do feel it's low though.
All right.
Like I feel like it should have been higher, but at the same time, I think Thanos' background and the children of Thanos, all of it was missing something for me. Okay, sure. What about you though? What was yours?
I mean, this was. I will say we talked about this movie a lot. We've talked about everything that came with it, basically. I think, whether it be the hand-to-hand combat or the big fight scenes, the entrance of Thor and Wakanda is one of the best moments. I will say that kind of whole scene of him getting Stormbreaker...
I could live without that, honestly.
That's what brings the score down for me. This movie is almost perfect. It's fantastic. Mm-hmm. You have to have that scene, I think, because you need to show him getting the hammer. But maybe it didn't need as much adversity, him having to hold it open himself, like all that stuff. Like maybe you could have streamlined that a little bit. But with that being said, I think this rewatch, this is not one I've seen a ton of times. I think I've seen it 3 times. I saw it 2 times in theater. I saw it one more time before I saw Endgame. And so I think this is the 4th time I've seen it. And I think this was actually, I enjoyed it more this time than I had in any other experience, even my first one, which I was not expecting. I was like, wow. And so I think doing the whole rewatch with the end has really made this movie rise up a little bit. Okay. And so I think it took us 19 movies. Fact check me on this, but we're at the same score, 9.2.
Really? I don't think we've been at the same.
I don't think so. So
check my videos.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Check the math on that. I don't know if we've had the same exact score, but yeah, I was at a 9.2. Okay. And I think it's just for that a little bit draggy moment there with Thor and Rocket, even though I love their dynamic and their relationship. Yeah. Peter Dinklage as Eitri the dwarf. I didn't really need that.
Yeah, I really could have lived without it.
And, there were a couple other, either moments of like that moment where Bruce comes back out on Earth and Captain America and Black Widow, and he's like, hey guys, it's that reintroduction. And you get that kind of awkward moment between him and Black Widow, and then Falcon says, well, this is awkward. Like,
yeah, he didn't need to call it out. Yeah, he really didn't.
So there were definitely a few things in this movie that I could have done without. So that's why it's not perfect. It's not a 10, but 9.2. Like, I love this movie. It's fantastic, and I could see this one continuing to rise in my estimation as we move forward.
I could see that. That's amazing. It is a really good movie, and it just, you get some of those points, and I think that's going to be in any movie no matter what. You know?
So after the huge movie that was Avengers Infinity War, we're going to take a step back to Ant-Man and the Wasp. And I remember this is only a couple months after this movie that this came out. And, maybe is this a little bit of a letdown? I guess you're going to have to tune in to our next video to find out. But this has been the Avengers Infinity War retrospective review. This is what we were building towards, guys. So we hope you loved it. Let us know what you think of this movie down in the comments. Let us know what you think of the series so far. And again, like, comment, subscribe. We want to know what keeps you geeky. Tune in next time for Ant-Man and the Wasp. Again, for Get Your Geek On, that's Aaron. I'm Robert. Stay geeky, guys.